go. That's better. It's better for everybody. Now, so I'm live on YouTube. This is good news. Going to go live on LinkedIn in about 3 minutes. Just waiting for the go live button to come through. Might have to change something here. Stop a minute. 2, 1. Good morning, folks. It's Martin Dormany here from Inspire Coaching, a coaching company based in Basel, Switzerland, where we help people be at their very best every day without burning out, as so many do. The topic this morning, if you're watching it in the morning, or if you're not, if you're watching it later in the day, I just need to mute one of my lines coming in here. You can tell it's live and raw and unedited. The topic we're going to briefly discuss and can do in much more depth if you want to get in touch later is power. The force is strong with this one was the title. Bit provocative. Not going to be talking about Star Wars, even though I do remember queuing up to see the very first one in the Odeon Theatre in Leicester Square in London, because that was the best place to go and see it. Anyway, power. Nothing to do with Star Wars whatsoever. As you know, if you know me, if you've been following me, if you've been watching any of the previous Go Lives, which you still can do, even on the YouTube channel, you will know that I use 4 psychometric analysis, a maximum, and not all of them at the same time, in the work I do, helping people be at their very best every day. One is the Emotional Capital Report from Ross Martin. It's all about developing emotional intelligence in leaders. And actually, that feeds nicely into this power thing. Another one is the Clifton Strength Finder. And I'm honored to be one of the very first adopters of the certification course run by Clifton in 2012. Run by Gallup, sorry, in 2012, and use that to find out what their talents are and what they're best at. And again, power is one of those things that people who are high in the measurement of power, as assessed by themselves and their peers, would learn to look at in order to get the best out of their people without burning out. The other one is a stress and well-being assessment, and I'll lay it out here if you would like to know more about your baseline stress and well-being at this stage. Get in contact afterwards and we can fit up a discovery call, and I can share with you a link to take you to your own personal stress and well-being assessment. The other assessment I use is from the suite of tools from a company called Human Synergistics. And more recently, I've been working with their leadership work styles. This is the work style of people who run the company and the people who they they lead in running the company. So their teams and their teams. So the C-suite and the C-suite minus one. Interesting. You'd think these people, all of them, would know what good leadership is. And yet, time and time again, when we discuss leadership, work style, behavior, we discover that the desire to have a collaborative, considerate, wonderful, human connecting workplace to get the best out of people without burning out um, is often far removed from the actual and the reality. And in the circumplex from human synergistics, they break the behaviors up into 12 little segments, like hours on a clock. And in those 12, there are three broader categories. So we have the considerate collaborative way of working, which is ideal. And then there are those behaviors that are described as being um, aggressive, overtly, and those that are passive. Yeah, there is a task and human element to this as well. So very much like the discovery insights and any of those personality type indicators you might come along, but different in that this is behavior. So why does the emotional intelligence capital, the emotional capital report from Roche Martin, help us understand the behavior that is coming out as the external physical thing that people see? So when we do any of these assessments, we often do a self-assessment. So how am I? How do I think I am? How do I see myself? And then the juice comes when we ask our colleagues, our peers, our subordinates, and our leaders to rate us among those same qualities. And the strange thing is, um, a lot of people don't get that behavior, the thing that you see me do, stems right back into the emotion that my body is experiencing. Now, I don't know the emotion until I feel it. So, feelings and emotions are different. And the physiology, the way I hold myself, has an impact on that too. So, everything in your environment informs your system, your body, your psychology about stuff. And then you interpret that through various filters to make sense of it and then develop an emotion, an emotional response to everything from driving a car to waking up on a Monday morning thinking, I've got to go to work, to, yay, it's Friday. Everything is an emotional response. And the behavior is in line with that emotional response to the situation outside. Even Dr. Gabor Mate would say that trauma isn't what happened to you, it's what happened inside of you. Your interpretation to that external event is the trauma, and that's where the healing will come. Now, the strange thing is, I find it strange, people who are high in this power domain, who exhibit behavior that's described collectively as power, love it. They think it's great. Uh, More recently, there are two standout clients that I've had in the recent past. There's one that really still gets me, cracks me up a bit. Shouldn't, but anyway, I'll describe briefly without naming names, and hopefully without naming anything about them that you would identify them with. Uh, but they wear this power mantle like a big medal, like a badge of honor. Like, whoa, strut! Look at me, I've got power. The sad thing is, I believe that it's a mask, and they put a lot of energy into having this mask, and it's a function of um, conditioning, behavior, or whatever that went on to bring out this quality. Um, Not saying it's a good quality; it's a quality, nevertheless, that they then wear as a badge of honor. And why do they do that? Well, the big thing, the big love that they have in this is that they get stuff done. They actually um, are thanked sometimes by parts of the organization that have tried to move things along and then are just waiting for them to turn up because they know they get stuff done. And they get stuff done, okay, they get results. But what they don't see is the damage they leave behind. What they don't see is that it's like the wake of a boat charging through the water. It's all nice and calm in front of you, and you're having a nice time. But if you look out the back, where you've ploughed through the water, there's a wake. The water's all messed up, and it takes a while to settle down again. And that, my friends, is kind of what happens when power gets in charge and power pushes through. And yeah, you get stuff done, and the results come in, and you're a hero, but you left a lot of damage behind. And sometimes they don't care. That's a bit of a weird one. The other trait, if you'd like to call it that, the other thing that happens with people who have this high power domain is that they're very much what can I say, that power is like a controlling thing. They have this over confidence, big confidence that they have, and they have an assertive leadership. But there is a massive difference between being clear, decisive, and assertive, and polite and considerate in your delivery, and power. Power is just this push that goes through. Power is I tell you what to do, you jump and you do it. And here's an example. So I was working in a company, and we were doing some training on leadership, and we're doing all sorts of things in that basic, not basic, the fundamental, the foundations of good leadership is knowing. One of the things you do need to know is who your stakeholders are. Who is it who's in your team, who works with who, how are they getting on with each other? This really plays into that emotional intelligence piece. Can you identify? Can you empathize with people? Can you put yourselves in those shoes to see what it looks like from their perspective and so on? It also really plays into that humanistic, encouraging piece about connecting with people and finding out what they need in order to do their best and how you can help them do that as a leader. My view, that's fundamental. Um, this particular employee, though, had a lovely matrix. Matrix leadership, matrix leaders, they're kind of those people that have a huge amount of responsibility, but very little authority. So even if they have this power domain, they can't really push it because the people in their team, because they're a matrix team, are just going to shrug and say, well, and I've seen it many times, they just back off. They don't do what you ask them to because you're not treating them well. And on this one occasion, there was a big matrix teams come up when there's a project to do, something to deliver, and it goes across all areas of the business. So you've got people reporting in from different areas that you wouldn't normally have in a team, but they've come together temporarily to deliver this project. And on this one occasion, um, the matrix leader got everyone together and made sure all the progress was going along. They had all the dashboards and all the red light and red, green, amber lights and dials and all sorts of stuff on these flip PowerPoint slides. And everything was measured and everything was going green. And we got to the end of the project day and it was click live, and boom, the whole thing went live and failed. And what the project manager, the matrix leader, had failed to deal with and yet knew was that he didn't have a relationship, particularly good relationship, with two of the people in this team, and that those two people didn't have a relationship, good working relationship with each other. So they played to the rule book and did what they were expected to do and didn't have the initiative, despite the capabilities of having the initiative to take things further and test their bit in the full program. So in isolation, it worked. Stick it in the full program, and there were some hiccups. So the whole thing failed. And the Matrix leader himself actually expressed these words, which I still find rather wow. He said, I don't understand what happened because everybody else in the team did exactly what I told them to do, but they didn't. That's when power goes wrong. That's when you think you have the power and you really, really haven't. Another example is another client, another company, another place, another time. And this is what happens, generally happens with power. Power, people in that power domain can really have a backup style that's even bigger than the power. And this client described the person in the room as being a tank. They're very overtly direct. Happened to be quite a large person. That's neither here nor there. But the delivery of the message was high energy, high volume, um, really aggressive, not assertive, became aggressive, and this power pushed through. And the client said that they felt as though there was a tank in the room. So what happens then? Well, what happens then is that everybody else in the room shuts up, and you get the passive behavior coming through. And in that passivity, if I can say that, which I almost did, you get people not being able to speak up. They can't share their ideas. They can't rebut. They can't even seek clarity. And given that a good 70, 80% of mistakes in the workplace come down to poor communication, clarity is essential. So people in this high power push away any chance for other people to speak up. And hey, I didn't understand. Ooh, out it comes again. Power. Excessive power really comes down to micromanagement as well. So there's a lack of trust. Any leader you find micromanaging doesn't trust what's going on, and they become control freaks. There needs to be trust within that team in order to get the best out of them. And then yes, you get resistance from team members. Team members can't communicate with you. The narrow-mindedness comes in, and also there's a resistance to feedback. I don't care what you think. I'm just doing this. Now, another key phrase people who have in this high power domain hear it time and time again. It's, why do I need to change? Because who I am and how I am has got me here. And often, amazingly, they're in very senior places. They've almost bullied their way up the tree. That they don't see the need to change their behavior in order to get better results out of the team. And you end up with workplace harassment and bullying. And then organizational dysfunction and distrust. So balance needs to come in. Leaders need to balance their power styles in order with other leadership styles in order to get the best out of the team. I'm sure there are times when, if you think back, but what happens to you is you get triggered. If you think back to that time when there was a power over you, blah, 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 the chances are it was a parent or a teacher. Whenever the boss, whoever they are, steps up to this power platform, excuse me, it takes you right back. You get triggered, and all those emotions in you come back up, and you're tongue-tied and so on. So people who are high in this power really, really, really could do with self-assessment and develop an understanding of the level of destruction that they leave behind them. So let's have a quick look at what human synergistics actually talk about power. The person with high power score believes in taking decisive action. Now, there is one thing that really can derail programs and all sorts of things is no action. Action takers are needed. the thinking about a decision is a slowing down of the process. And a slowing down of the process is inefficiency, and efficiency costs. So the one thing that we can be thankful for some of these people is that their ability to go, well, let's do this. And sometimes, probably most times, when someone in the room is prepared to say, well, we're going to do it this way, a lot of people will relax and think, thank goodness I don't have to make a decision. But they can be easily provoked into anger. You've probably seen it if you have a boss in this way. You don't have to say too much to trigger that anger response in them. And then there's a defensiveness that comes with it, an irritability, and even sarcasm when challenged. An abusive state. As I'm saying this, I'm picturing some blonde, tousle-haired prime minister from the UK who could easily get defensive and irritable when challenged. Many videos of that if you want to go and see it. Boris Johnson, I'm talking about, of course. People who are very high in this power domain won't invite feedback or criticism. So you'll be a brave person to even say to this person, may I offer you some feedback? And just a word of warning on that one. When you say that to a boss, sometimes they see it as an interesting way to resign. So be careful. I think leaders need to have feedback. Be careful how it's done. It can be misconstrued. They like to hear feedback about others, but not about themselves. They can also, and you'll find this as well, make decisions in isolation. So you may be thinking you're having a collaborative team meeting and talking through the topics and that sort of thing, and you come to a resolution at the end of the meeting, only to find out the next day that they've changed their mind and a completely different set of directions to be going for. They fight for position rather than work with others. So the fight really, it's about me. The ego is big in this one. The force might be strong, but the ego is big, and it's all about who is right rather than what is right. Now, people who are high in power scores are also, sadly, less effective as leaders. There was a thing from Gallup organization that I attended the other day, and they've done a huge amount of work about leadership. And it turns out that only 1 in 10 leaders are naturally gifted to be leaders, and the other 9 in 10 need help. And yet, being promoted to leadership is often seen as an honor, a gift, but it's actually a huge responsibility. Despite being more likely to achieve leadership positions, people who have this power status, this power behavior segment that's high, are less effective because good leaders listen to their team. They still have an idea of what's going on around them. They still need to be in touch with the effect of the decision that's been made. Too often in many organizations, leaders who are in this power domain stay in their leadership position for 2, possibly 3 years, constantly seeking the next job and constantly leaving, but coming in change. Every leader, every time we see a leadership change, we know there's going to be change in the organization, in the team, in the direction, the strategy, and so on, which is a bit of a downer because these leaders need to leave their mark. But what they do, they leave their mark and then they jump somewhere else and leave another mark somewhere else, and really don't have that tenure, that big picture view of the overall strategy and is it working. So research indicates also that an angry, hostile, and aggressive style is not only hard on other people, but it can seriously undermine that person's actual health as well. So that's something to think about if you are self acknowledging your power, but if you've also heard it from other people that you are overexerting yourself in this power domain. Just checking the time, folks. So, in summary, These people are dominating. You know who they are. They can be very abrupt, controlling and impatient with others. Sometimes, and this is a word that was used to someone and they found it very upsetting, dictatorial. You're running a dictatorship. Given where we are in Central Europe, nobody likes to hear that word. So don't be offensive, but just let them know that it would be better for them if they calm down a bit. And although saying calm down to anyone never really worked, that they would perhaps be better off listening a bit more and speaking a bit less, but speaking after they've considered what they're going to say and how they're going to say it. They tend to be self-centered and egotistical. So this whole notion of being the hero that comes in and saves the day, being the one that takes decisions, being the one wearing this badge of honor, I, in my position as a coach, it's I'm holding up the mirror and basically saying this isn't a good thing, you know, and having quite a nice discussion most of the time. It is respectful, where they say, "But it is," and trying to shift them off that place is difficult. So, how do you do it? How can they do it? How can you move someone in this way? Well, first of all, is calming down the autonomic nervous system and getting it back into balance. People who are operating in this high power domain are often stimulated and having a flush of adrenaline, and with that, cortisol and probably some other factors as well. In fact, when you're over in that high energetic um, state, there's something like 1,400 hormones, enzymes, and neurotransmitters that are flooding every single cell in the body. So not just in the brain. And this means that every single cell is being affected in an adverse way. And it takes energy to do that. It takes massive energy. Normally, after a meeting, we have someone who's in their power mode. Not only will you feel exhausted, but they will too, not that they are going to admit it. So they will have more energy at the end of the day if you can get them to rebalance their autonomic nervous system. And really, ideally, to bring the heart rate down through breathing down, low and slow is my motto. So nose breathing. Oh, we could do a whole month on breathing if you want to, but let's not. The key essentials are nose breathing. Trust me on that one. You need the nitrous oxide. And down through your diaphragm, move your diaphragm down, not your chest up, down into your belly, and slow, low and slow, a little bit lower, a little bit deeper than you usually do, and slowly focus your attention into the chest or heart area. Bringing that attention down just takes you out of your head, takes you out of the brain. The prefrontal cortex relaxes. The monkey brain can just have a sit back for a while, and you can start to really then think about, in a clearer headed way, how to bring the best out of your people on a daily basis without pushing them into passive behaviors where they can't speak up, but more encouraging them to speak up. Teams that share do a lot better than teams that don't. And just be respectful. Be respectful of the people in front of you and of yourself, for this will benefit you in a massive way as well. So we can have more on that if you like. Do let me know in the notes, comments. Do share if you want to share. You'll find this on my YouTube channel, as it's streamed live there too. It'll be back on LinkedIn as a previously seen live. And next week, on Wednesday, same time, same place, we'll have another topic about leadership work styles. But until then, please do get in touch. Martin@inspirecoaching.com, or message me through LinkedIn, and I look forward to seeing you one way or the other. Be well. I'm just trying to push the stop button.